Welcome back everyone. In today's episode, we're going to talk about building a game with JavaScript, because all this while we have been building concepts, and this is the time now to implement those concepts and build a JavaScript game. I think building a game is the best way to learn JavaScript because when you are actually implementing all of those concepts and building a complex thing like a game, it will not only be better for you to learn JavaScript quickly, because you need to manipulate the DOM. For example, you can see this is the ball shooting game or circle shooting game. There are so many things that you need to do, like this ball needs to drop. When you click on it, it should disappear. Then you can see that the score is being added up. These balls are dropping from random locations, random positions. So why I chose this is because then you become good with positions. You can see that these are random scores that you get. They're random colors that they come in. So there are so many things that you get to do. So this is why I feel that building games with JavaScript is going to be really good for learning. Plus, it's going to be a lot of fun as well. So you will learn with fun. So when I was learning JavaScript, I built my first game with JavaScript and also put that onto the Play Store. So just want to show that to you. Go over here. If you go onto the Play Store, you'll be able to see that this is the game that I had built. So you can always check out how it looks like. And this is the game that I built just in 2 weeks time. And this is a bird shooting game. There are like 3 different levels. There is dragon, so there's so many things going on. And I learned JavaScript. I learned my basic concept implementation by building a game, and believe me, it was super fun. Okay, so you're gonna enjoy it, you're gonna love it. Let's begin. So let me show you what we want to achieve. What we want to do basically is create a container in which we are going to have these elements which need to drop down from top, and it should go down and disappear. And each of these should have different colors, random scores. And when the user clicks on one of these, then the score should be added. Whatever is inside of this, let's say 15. So you click on it, you can see 15 is added. Now you click on this, it's been added to the score. If you miss any of these balls, you can see that the miss count is also increasing. So the moment the ball reaches at the bottom of the stage, your game area, and if you miss them, then those are going to be added in the number over here, right? Now, we want to give an ability for anyone to decide how many balls are going to be inside of this game, and different parameters for this game, like the speed of the ball and all of that stuff. We want to keep that available for anyone to change. So you're going to go ahead and build that. Okay, so let's begin. So the very first thing we're going to do is create an index.html file, and we're going to go ahead and give it a title of ball shooting game. You can name it whatever you want. Then we're going to need a div with an ID of container, and this is the place where your entire game will be inserted with the help of JavaScript. So all of the game elements will be inserted, right? So let's give it a class name of game area. Okay, then we're going to also need to have an element wherein we can go ahead and insert our score. So let's create a container for that first. So score container. Okay, and then inside of this I can have score wrap. We're going to need 2 scores. The first score will be when you shoot the ball, and the second will be that number of balls that you missed shooting. Okay, so let's keep it inside of the p tag. Let's put it as score, and then let's just put that in the span tag. Give it an ID of score, and then class of score as well. Okay, and let's just put the number as 0 for now, and there you go. Similarly, for the missed count, we're going to put that as missed score as an ID, and then the class might as well be the same, and initially we set that to 0. Okay, so we've got a container, and we've got the place where we're going to keep all of the game content. Okay, I've already added some style for this over here. So since this is not as since this is not a tutorial for CSS, I'm not going to be worrying about spending time in talking about CSS, but yes, I can just include that CSS file. Okay, so let's say link, and it's going to include style.css. And what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and add a background to this container so that it looks good. Okay, let's refresh, and there you go. So this is our game area that's been created with some CSS. I just want to show it to you what it is. Okay, so currently we have a score container, which is this. It has two elements. One is your score. It has two elements. First is your score, where it's going to take care of the score, and the second is your missed count. Okay, so the number of balls you missed shooting. So that's that, and then there's just an empty div and nothing else with a background image where we're going to insert the entire game with JavaScript. I mean, you could create all of these elements with JavaScript as well and insert them into body, but I've just chosen to just put these divs together just to save some time. Okay, so this is where the magic is that the entire game elements are going to be inserted inside of this container with the help of JavaScript. That's the beauty of it. Okay, are you excited? Well, I'm pretty excited about this, so let's begin. Okay, so what we're going to do is let's create a JavaScript file, and we name it as game.js. And since we've already learned about object-oriented programming, we learned about the classes, we're going to implement all of the concepts that we learned over the last 3 videos. If you haven't already watched them, and if you are learning, if you are a beginner, you can watch them. Otherwise, if you're pretty comfortable with basics of JavaScript, then that's okay. We can just continue. So we will give it a class name the class is game. Okay, and then you create new game. So this is going to instantiate this object, and then this has a constructor method, and this method of a class is automatically called the moment you instantiate the class, the moment you instantiate the object using the new keyword. So the moment you call this method will be called, and whatever is inside of this will also be called. So let's go ahead and create a function called init, and this function is going to take care of all of the initialization of the game. Okay, like declaring different variables and taking care of all of the things that we need at the start of the game. Okay, and let's just call this function here. So we know that we can call a function by referring to it with this keyword. So this keyword refers to this particular class. So we said this dot init, so this function will be called. Okay, so whatever we do inside of it will be called. Now we also need to ensure that we include this JavaScript here. So remember, we discussed that it's better to keep the JavaScript just before the body tag ends, so that all of the elements are available, and DOM is all of these elements are available the moment your browser reaches this script. Okay, so let's go ahead and name it as game.js, and that's how we've included our script. Okay, awesome. Now the first thing we need to do is basically catch hold of this container. Okay, so this is my container. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this dot container. So this is a way to create a variable. I mean, we could have said like var container and then set its value to equal to whatever we want. But the reason why we are using this over here, so that if you use this, and while initializing the variable, it will be available from any of the methods of the class using this keyword. Okay, great. Now let's say document dot get element. So remember, we discussed about that we can get hold of an element with the help of its ID using document dot get element by ID method. So what is the name of the ID? It's container, so we're just going to put that there, and there we go. If you do a console log this dot container, you will see that we've got hold of this element, right? Awesome. Great. Now we also need to get hold of the score element, which is basically going to be this, because we want to change this value whenever user goes ahead and clicks the ball. So let's get hold of that as well. We're going to keep all of the variables for us so that it saves our work later. Element, again, document.get element by ID, and we just need to put the ID name, and the ID name for this is score. Okay, then we also need the missed score, because we're going to insert the value of this if the user misses hitting the ball. I know we haven't created the ball yet, but we soon will. Okay, so missed score element equals document.get element by ID, and what's the ID for this? Well, this is miss score. Okay, so we've got hold of these elements, this particular 0, this one, and the entire container as well. Great, awesome. Now what we also want to know, what is the container height, this entire container, because we're going to go ahead and take care of different positions based on the height of the container. So we do need to know how big this entire container is, which is nothing but this container right here. Okay, you can see I've given it a height of 100 VH, which means it's going to take a height of the entire screen. Okay, awesome, entire window. Okay, so we'll say this dot container height equals document.get element by ID, and in fact I don't have to do that because you already have the container element here. So instead of writing this whole thing, I can just write it and say dot. Now we have a property available called offset height. So offset height is going to give me the height of this container. So if I check height, this dot container height, let's check that. You can see now I get to know what's the height. If I reduce it a little, you can see it takes the full height of the container, because I've given it a CSS property value of 100 VH. Now you will see that the height is changed. So it's all dynamic, and that's what we're looking for, right? Awesome. So we've got the height as well. Now we want to initialize a value of the score first. So initially let's keep the score value to 0 first, and that's the value of the score here. Okay, then we're going to initialize the ball count. We want to be able to decide how many balls we want to throw in this set of the game. Okay, so in the duration of the game. So let's say that initially we set the ball count value to 5, which means I want 5 balls to appear from top and go to the bottom. So I want 5 balls to be created. Then we go to this dot. I want to also be able to control the speed of dropping of the ball. So I will create another one, and we'll say drop ball speed equals 5. So that's okay. And then I also want to hold some value for the missed score. In fact, I should put this here. This dot missed score. So missed count, I can say missed count initially to 0. How many balls I missed shooting. So I think that's pretty much it. This is good. And then I want to be able to go ahead and create the ball. Okay. Because we will be creating those balls multiple times, rather than going ahead and writing the code over and over again, we're going to follow a rule which is called DRY, which is do not repeat yourself. If you're going to be doing, if you're going to be writing the same code repeatedly, it's better to put that in a function. Okay, so I'm going to create a function, and we'll name that function as create ball. Okay. So what this helps us to do is basically, put one chunk of code into a particular function, and it tells us what it does. So when we're looking at the code like create ball, we know that the job of this is basically to create ball. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing we do is we need to create a div element. And in JavaScript, there is a method called createElement, which will allow us to create an element, an HTML element. So we will hold that value in a constant. We'll name it as ball element equals document.createElement. So document has a method called create element, and the job of this is to create an element. You can create anything that you want. You want to create a p tag, just put p over here. You want to create an image, put image, and let's say I want to create a div, so I'll put that as div. Okay, now if you go ahead and console ball element, first let's just call this function here, this dot create ball, so that we get something. If you refresh, there you go, you have a div now created. Of course, it is not inside of this DOM, but it is there in, over here in memory that we've created this element. Right, awesome. So the next thing we want to do is basically generate some random numbers, because this element should contain some score. This should be random. Okay, so we're just going to add another function here saying get random number. So the job of this is to create a random number that could be from a given range. So in JavaScript we have math function, math.floor function, and this allows us to create random numbers. Inside of this we need to put math.random in order for us to create a random number, and then you need to multiply it with the range that you want to create. So if you want to create a number between, let's say, 0 to 9, you'll put 10 over here. How you do it. Okay, so since this could be we can make this dynamic, because we may require to have random numbers between given range, so we can put that as a range over here, and we'll put that as range, and we're going to go ahead and get the point for this ball. How many points does it contain? So we'll say points equals this dot get random number, and let's say we want the ball to have points ranging between 0 to 99. So for that we can do 100 as we discussed, right? Awesome. So now this is going to give me that information. You want to see if that works. Points, refresh, there you go, 81, repeat, 14, repeat, 60. So each time it gives me a random number. This way each of my ball can have a different score altogether. Awesome, great. Next thing is that we want to be able to add a class to it. So we can say ball element dot class list dot add, and we give it a class of ball. Okay, we've already discussed all of this in the previous lessons, so you must be aware. Okay, now inside of this, so now let's keep printing the ball and see what we are getting inside of it. So there you go. Now you can see earlier it was an empty div, now it has a class of ball. Now next thing, we want to insert the score that we've just created with a random number inside of this element. So what we can do is we can say ball element dot text content. So we have a property called text content, and we can set its value equal to points. Now remember, points is actually an integer, so we can convert it to string using JavaScript function called toString. And now if I refresh and check, you can see that this has 31 score inside of it. Refresh again, it has 73, refresh again. Okay, let me just zoom it in. So refresh again, it's 33. Again, refresh, it's 51, so on, right? Isn't this awesome? Great. So we've got that going there. Also, we want to be able to, put the points so that we can extract those points with the help of JavaScript later on. I mean, we can extract it from the text content as well, but a better way of doing it will be setting its attribute. Okay, so we can say ball.setAttribute data points, okay, and then set the value equal to points. Okay, now if you check, it has a data points attribute, and its value is 36. The reason why we are doing this is because when the user clicks on that ball, we want to be able to grab hold of the points value from its attribute using get attribute. So remember, we use set attribute to set its value, and using get attribute we can grab hold of this point 36, and then we can use that point to insert that value and add it to the existing value of the score. And we've already created this dot score, so we can keep adding to this and then insert that content over here, so it keeps adding the score. Okay, awesome. The next thing I want to do is basically add an event to this particular element so that when the user clicks on it, it should do something, right? So we'll say ball element dot add event listener. So I know we did not discuss the events. So events are actions or occurrences that happen in a system you are programming, which the system tells you about so that you can respond to them in some way. For example, a user clicks on a button on a web page, you might want to respond to that action by displaying an information box or do something else. So when some event happens, you want to do something. Okay, so they are basically action or occurrences. So we're going to learn about the events here. So you can add an event to an element. So what we really want to do is that when we have this element, we want to be able to click on it and then add that score. So the way you do it, you put the element. Okay, so we have an element here, and there is a method called add event listener, and this allows us to add an event. There are different types of events. There's a click event, there's a mouse hover event. So there's loads of them. You can go and check it out online. But what we're dealing with for this game purposes is the click event. So it takes different parameters. The first parameter it takes is the name of the event. Which event do you want to apply? So I'll apply click, and then it takes a second parameter as a function. So since it takes a function, rather than writing a function here, what I can do is I can go ahead and put the function, create a function here. What I want to do is basically shoot ball, right? So we'll come to this later, what this function will do, but we can just put that function here, saying this dot. Remember, we can access the functions and properties with the help of this keyword. So this dot shoot ball, and then it takes a parameter called event. So event becomes available. Whatever the event is becomes available over here, and that will be passed here as well. Okay, so whatever event has occurred will be available here. Awesome. Great. So now we have this event set up. Now we want to be able to also append this to my container, right? Because I want to add this to my container. So I can say this dot container dot append child. So we have a method called append child, and this allows us to append that to our container. So it takes a parameter, whatever element you want to append to the container, to the element, you can put that here. Okay, so I want to show that to you. So now if you go back, refresh, there you go, we have our ball. Now if you're wondering how did it become circular, how did we get the color of it, and all of that stuff, don't worry, we've just written some style for it. Like I said, I'm not going to spend time in explaining to you about what style I've put in, because that's something you guys can do. So you can see just text align center, font size, text transform. I'm sorry, we're looking at the wrong one. This is the one right here. Yep. So you can see you've got some width, you've got some height, you've got border radius, background color, position absolute. And the reason why we're using position absolute, because we want to move this element, so it needs to have a position. Okay, display flags, justify content center, font size, color, cursor pointer, so all of that is there. Okay, so now you can see that because we use this method, this dot container dot append child, the element that we just created, which was ball element, this element is now inserted over here. And now if you refresh, you'll notice that the number is changed, because every time we are generating a random number using the get random number. And all we are doing is we're just putting the content of this to whatever number we generate each time, right? And then we're also adding that to the attributes as well. Okay. Okay, now you see it's 92, refresh, it becomes 60, so it keeps on changing. So we've got one ball going on over there. Okay, we've created a function, the job of which is basically to create the ball, create a div element, then add a class, generate a random number, put that inside as a text, and put that to the data attribute as well. And you can see that earlier, when we did not use this function, this div was empty. So all we've done is we've got hold of this container with the help of this dot container that we initially got hold of using document.getElementById, and all we are doing is just using append child to append the this particular element inside of this container. So if I now refresh, you can see that inside of this container now we have this. Now the score is 0, it's 81, keeps on changing. Awesome. So I think we've started pretty well. So we've got our ball there, and if you click on it, something happens. So if you console clicked, and let's also print the value of event, what do we get inside of it? Okay, this won't be available like this. What we'll have to use, you'll have to use arrow functions. I'm not using the normal function. Reason for this is because if you use the normal function, then you'll have to bind this. So if you're wondering what this looks like, is basically what this is doing is, if you write a normal anonymous function, let me just give you an example. So if you were writing a function like this, let's say function, and then you return another function out of it, this dot shoot ball, and whatever you want to pass, let's say event. So this is the same as this basically. Okay, so we're using this, so the function keyword is taken off in the arrow function, it's not required, and then we're using this arrow instead of using these braces, and then instead of returning using a return keyword, if the function returns only one particular statement, we can directly call it here. Okay, awesome. So this was just to show you what it does. Okay, so arrow function is part of ES6. Okay, but in this case this is pretty useful, it's pretty helpful. So now if you check, refresh, if you click on it, so now if you click on it, you can see that this is clicked and we have a mouse event. So event has got everything, but what we're interested in is this, the target. Okay, what has been clicked? So you will get that information in event.target. Refresh, and now if you hit it, you can see that that particular element is available, and that's what we're interested in, right? So what do we want to do? So what we really want is that when you go ahead and click that element, that whatever is inside of this, whatever the score is, it should be added to the score box, right? Okay, so how can we do that? Well, the first thing we'll do is, first we'll get hold of the target element, and we know that we've got that in event.target, we've got the target element. So let's get hold of that inside of a constant. We'll just say target element equals event.target. Okay, the next thing we'll do is we'll get hold of the points, because we want to know how many points does this ball have. So remember, we used a set attribute to set the value. Now to get the value, we'll say if target element dot get attribute, and we want to be able to get the attribute which is data points. So it's going to take the attribute name, so we'll put data points. Okay, so we've got the points. If you do console log points, refresh, and then if you hit it, you can see that now you've got 91. That's what we're interested in, right? Awesome. The next thing we'll do is basically add the score. So again, instead of making this function dirty, we'll go ahead and create another function called add score, and the job of this will be to add the score. Okay, so we'll put add score. It's going to take how many points you want to score, add points, and then remember we already have the value of this dot score, so keeping this value available globally would allow us to access it anywhere we want, and we can go ahead and keep updating this value, and any of these functions can access to this updated value anytime, right? So we can say that this dot score plus equal to, which means whatever the value of this is, add the points to that. Now of course we want to ensure that the points we get is an integer. So there is a function called parseInt in JavaScript. If you use that and put the whatever value inside of it, it will make sure to return an integer value. We want to ensure this is integer because If it's a string, then it'll just concatenate the value. It won't add the value to it. Okay, so this is same as writing this dot score equals this dot score plus percent points. So this is same. Okay. So let's say the initial value of this dot score was 0, which is in current case, right? It's 0. If we pass points value to like 10, it's going to go ahead and make it equal to 10, and then next time it will become 10 plus, let's say we're adding 100, points value is 100, so it will become 110. Okay, so that's how it works. So we're adding the points. Now let's see, what do we get? The first thing we're going to do is we'll add this, go ahead and call this function. So we know that we can call the function of a class using this keyword, and just put the points over here and just console log the value of the score to see what we get. Awesome. Let's refresh, and if you go ahead and hit it, you can now see it's 192. Oops. You can now see first it becomes 8. Okay, I've added it twice over here. Let me just get rid of it. Okay, that was just an example, so not a problem. Okay, so 71, again hit, 142, again hit, 213. So it's keep on adding the existing value to it, and that's exactly what we want. So we have the score value being incremented. All we want to do is just append that value to this element. So we know that we have this element, which is this 0 right here, inside of this score element, right? And we have that score element that we've created, just this. So we're just going to use that. We'll say this dot score element dot. Remember how we added the value inside of this element using text content, right, on top, like this. Same thing we'll do over here as well. So we'll say text content equals whatever the value of the score is, this dot score, and remember we have to ensure it's a string we are putting, so we'll just say toString, and that'll take care of it. Now if we refresh, and if I hit it, there you go. Isn't that awesome? Now you can see this added. If I hit it again, it's added. And notice what happens over here as well. That's the beauty of JavaScript. You can manipulate, change, update the DOM elements with the help of JavaScript. So I'm asking that go ahead and grab hold of this element, which is this span right here, and make the text content of it, which means the inside part, this node element, okay, text node, make the value equal to whatever the score is into a string format. Okay, let's refresh. It's 0. Okay, add that 63, and again 63 plus 63 equals 126. Add that again, it's 189. So the score keeps increasing, and that's what we really want as a part of the game, right? So I think we've achieved one of the most important part of features of the game, which is to be able to hit the ball and add the score. What we also want to do is remove this element from the DOM, because if I'm already clicking this ball, I want this ball to disappear. So I don't want this ball to stay in the DOM, right? So currently it is still in the DOM. We don't want the user to keep clicking on this ball and adding the score. That won't be fun, right? So how do I make it disappear? Well, it's pretty simple. There is a method in JavaScript. It's called remove. We just need to call that method on that element, and it will remove that element from the DOM. So when we shoot the ball, a part of it also is to be able to go ahead and remove this element from the DOM. So what is my element? Well, my element is the target element, right? So all I'll say, target element dot remove. That's pretty simple, straightforward. Refresh, hit it, and now if I click it, there you go. Now you can see, observe what happens here. Refresh, hit it, score is added, and the element is removed from here. Refresh. Notice currently we have this element. If I click it, notice what happens here. There you go. The element goes away. Isn't that amazing? Awesome. That's what we really want, right? Great. Perfect. now so far we've got only one ball, okay, but would it be interesting to make this element sound something as if it's been hit? Well, there is a way to do it. We can include audio, right? So what we can do is, so in JavaScript, sorry, in HTML, we have an HTML element we can add over here, and we can make it like audio. Okay, and then let's give it an ID, and let's give it an ID of shooting audio, and inside of this we'll take source. Okay, inside of source we'll put source, and then I've already put some sound into the sound directory, so I'll just use that. So there is a shooting sound, I'm just going to use that. It's an MP3 format, so it's inside of the sound directory and shooting. And then we also need to put the type of this audio. So this is audio / the type is MP3 format. Okay, great. Let's just give some control to just test it. Oops. Controls, refresh. Here it is. Okay, so this is the audio. All right. And now I need to grab hold of that audio. So what will I do? So same thing, have the document.getElement by ID method available. I can just use that here. So I'll say this dot shooting audio equals document dot get element by ID, and the ID for that is shooting audio, right? So the ID for this element is shooting audio, and that's what we put over here, over there. Awesome. So you've got this element. All I want to do is to be able to play this element when the user shoots it, which means hits it or clicks it. So it's pretty simple. We have a simple method, and that method is called play. And if I hit it, you'll be able to hear that it starts playing it. Okay. So let me show that to you. Isn't that amazing? So we've achieved the part of the game wherein we are able to go ahead and click on the ball, and then sound comes in and the score gets added and that ball gets removed. Okay. Of course, ideally the ball shouldn't have a 0 score, but it makes it more interesting because probably don't shoot that ball. It's up to you if you want to shoot it. You won't get any score out of it. Or you can change the range of a number, make it like between 1 to 99 instead of 0 to 99. But we'll worry about that later because this is for practice purposes. We can do so many things, make it improvise, etc. But let's just get to the basics first. Okay, so what we want to be able to do is that this ball should change its position. Basically, it should look like it's dropping, which means it should move from the top and go down to the bottom. But it should happen slowly and smoothly, right? So what do we do? Well, which function takes care of dropping the ball? Well, currently we don't have any, if you see, right? So we have an option to create the ball, but we don't have the option to drop the ball, right? So how do we do that? So in order for us to drop the ball, let's create a function called drop ball. Okay, drop ball. And remember, in JavaScript we use camel casing, which means the first letter small, and everything else which can be separated as words will start with a capital letter like this. Okay, so it's going to take the ball element first. So say ball element is going to take its left position because we are going to have multiple ball. If you use the same position, left position for each of the ball, then all of them will drop from the same point in the same location. So you want to be able to be spread across the window. So that's why we need the left position. We also need to have the end position, which means that wherever it is, where should it go and end, right? What is the end position? When it starts, where should it end after moving? And we also be able to control want to be able to control the speed of it. Okay, so first let's say the current position, let the current position of the ball current top position of the ball is 0. Okay, then we go ahead and set the left position of the ball by saying that ball element, we have an option, we have a property called style. So we can set an element's property using the style, and then we can set whatever the name of that property is. If I want to set a background, for that I'll use background here. If I want to set the color, I will use color property here. But in this case, I'm going to set the left position of that element. So left position of the element will be whatever the left position I'm passing from when I'm calling that function, and plus pixels. So I'm just going to concatenate pixels to it. Then we want to be able to set the background color of that as well. So we'll say background.style background color equals, and then I want each of the ball to have different colors. So how do we ensure that? Well, we know that we have the hex color available, and we can put a 3-digit number and it will go ahead and generate a color for that. So we can put hash and then plus concatenate to that, and then we already have a method that we have created called this called get random number. We'll just call that function here and just pass the value of how many digits of random number I want to generate. So for color code, I want to be able to have at least 3 digits of color code. So I will say 1000. I want numbers to range up to triple line, right? Awesome. So it's going to give me a 3-digit number. Okay, great. So now I can call this function this dot drop ball. Yeah, I need to have the ball element. So ball element equals. Now I can call this. So I've got the ball element. I need to know the left position. So what will be the left position? Again, let's ensure that the left position is a random number, because I want to be able to ensure that the position of this should be random. So I can go ahead and create a constant called left position equals this dot. Again, I have the same function. I want to be able to generate a 3-digit random number up to the range of triple line. Okay, so I'll pass the left position. Okay, and then the end position. Also, what should be the end position? Again, const end position and pos equals. I want to know what is the container height. Okay, because whatever the height of the container is will be the ending position of that, but I want to be able to add some more value to it because I want the ball to disappear. Otherwise it will just go and get stuck over here. If I keep the end position the same as the container height, then the ball is going to get stuck over here, or at least go till here only. I want it to appear as if it has gone beyond this, so that's why I'm adding 50 to it. Okay, great. What is the speed? Well, we already have the speed variable over here. I think, yep, this is the one. So I can use that. Great, awesome. Now if I check, go back to, now if I go ahead and do a console log for the ball element, let me see what we get. And I need to ensure that I return this ball element from here, right? So that I have it available over here, right? Okay, now let's check. What do we get? Refresh. And now you can see that the position of this ball is different now, right? You can see the left position is 436 because that's what we set over here. We said that the left position should be a random number that we are passing from top, from here, random number of 3 digits. And you can see, refresh. Now you can see it's different. It's 389. Refresh. Now it's different. It's 842, 20, 69, and that's what we want, right? I want this to be generated from different positions. Okay. Again, we can spend some more time in deciding what this position will be depending on the width of the screen, because then in mobile it could be an issue, because in mobile we may not have such large screen, right? But like I said, this is for exercise purposes. This is to train you with JavaScript. I don't want to make this very complicated. This is just to get the basics right. I think it'll be a task for you, a homework for you, that you can go ahead and extend it, improvise it, and make it available, make it working for mobile as well in terms of positions. So that is something that I will leave up to you. But for now, let's just get going with the game. Okay. Awesome. So you got the position. You can see that the background color also changes every time. So if I refresh, you can see it's a different color. It's a different RGB color. It's a different color. Okay. But here is showing RGB, but actually it's a 3-digit number that's changing. Yep, it's a 3-digit number. Okay. That's so far. So now we need to drop the ball, because so far we've only changed the position of it, but we aren't dropping the ball yet. So you have to drop the ball as well. Maybe we can take all of this into a different function, but for now let's leave it here. So what do I do to drop the ball? In order for us to drop the ball, I need to change its position. Okay, but I want to change its stop position. But I want this to be able to move smoothly. So for that, we can use setInterval. setInterval is actually a browser API. It's not a part of the JavaScript DOM API. It's a part of the browser API. Okay, so we can create a constant called interval and set its value equal to the setInterval. So this function takes two parameters. First is the function, so I'm going to use arrow function here, and the second parameter is the speed, so I'll just put the speed. You could directly use this drop ball speed here, or we've already passed this here, so it's up to you whichever way you want to do it, but just to let you know that both things are possible. A better way would be to use it directly from here, but it's fine for now. Okay, awesome. So now we'll go ahead and check the condition, and then we'll say if the end position equals the current top position. Okay, then go ahead and clear the interval. Okay, and got that. Okay, else. So which means that if the position becomes the same as the end position, which is the current top position becomes as the end position, clear the interval. But we also have to otherwise increase the current top position by 1. So plus plus means that whatever the value of the current top position, in this case is 0, increment that by 1. And what's going to happen is that this interval is going to run at whatever speed we pass in over here. So past 5 over there. And it's going to keep on running. This is going to keep on incrementing it by 1. So it become 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's say the end position is 10. So it will go up until 10, and then because it'll meet this condition, then the interval will be clear. Okay, so every setInterval function returns a number which is basically the value of that interval. So sometimes it's 3, 4, 12, 18, whatever it could be. Okay, so we're storing that value over here because we want to be able to clear the interval. Okay, so as you can see, I'm using this interval value. So clear interval method clears that interval. We don't want the intervals just keep hanging in there. Okay, once our job is done, we're supposed to do our cleaning work, housekeeping work to clear that interval. Okay, awesome. So this is that, and then we also need to change the top value so that the ball starts moving, right? So we'll say ball.style.top equals the current top position. Now if you refresh, you can see that it's dropping. Yeah, there you go, it's dropping. Isn't that wonderful? Awesome. And it's dropping from different places, different time, with different color, with different number. Let's give it a round of applause. Awesome. So see what happens. Notice what is happening over here. Okay, refresh. Oops. So you can see the top position is changing. Okay, I want to show that to you slowly. So let's increase the speed, like make it slower. So now it's going down. So you see it started from its zeroth position and it's changing, and it'll keep going up until the end position of this window. Okay, and plus 50, we also added 50 to that. We're saying that otherwise it would have, this ball would have gone up until here only. So the height of the window is 336. Okay, not 336 but 286 actually. You can see over here, notice what you can see here. So you can see 286, and then 286 plus 50, that's 336, right? So height of the window is 286, okay, and then we are saying add 50 to it. So make sure the ball goes to that height plus 50. So the total of the two is 336. So the ball will go up until the position of 336. You want to see, it's going to be there. Yeah, there you go. It's still here, right? But we don't want that, right? If the ball has done its job, it was there in the screen, user could not hit it, we want this ball to disappear. We don't want that ball to stay there. Okay, otherwise imagine if you are going to be creating like 1,000 balls, then all of those are going to be inside of this container, stuck down at the bottom. The user won't be able to see it, but they will still be there. We don't want that, right? You want this to disappear. You want that to go off of the DOM, and that's the power of JavaScript. We discussed about we can remove the element. So you can remove the element either by clicking on it, now you can see it's gone, or once this job is done, you can again disappear using the same function, make it disappear, just remove it from the DOM. So where do you want to do it? You tell me. Well, of course, over here itself. So once the ball has done its job, okay, which means that the current position is equal to end position, which means whatever position it started, now the position is the same as whatever it's expected to be at, then not only clear the interval, but also remove that element from the DOM. So what we'll do is we'll say ball element dot clear interval. Oops, not clear interval, but remove. Okay, great. Now if you notice, I'm going to refresh it. Notice what happens. Currently it's there. It's going to reach its position in some time, and once it does, it's going to be removed from the DOM, because we said that once the interval is complete, go ahead and remove it. See what happens. There you go. Now it's empty. It's gone. Just move it down a little bit. It's not there, right? Awesome. I think, would it be interesting to make a sound when it disappears to let the user know that, dude, you missed that ball? Okay, I think it would be pretty interesting. So why don't we do that? Okay. So like we went ahead and created an audio file for the shooting, we can do the same for missing a ball as well. So we can again copy this whole thing, paste it here, and put that there as lost audio. You could name it as missed, but I'll just keep it as lost for now. And I already got a music in my directory called missed to save time, so I'll just put that there, and there you go, we've got the lost audio. Same thing we'll do, just grab hold of that audio. So what do you want to name it as? We'll name it as missed audio. Okay, and then all I have to do is just play this audio just before the element leaves the DOM. We can say this.missedAudio.play. That's it. Let's try if that works. Let's increase the speed. That's the beauty of it. You know, if you define those elements as supposed to be changed anytime you want to, it makes it easier for us to just define them globally inside of the, not globally, but inside of this class. Okay. So we'll say the speed, let's again reduce it to 5. And now let's see what happens. So you heard that sound? Great. That's what we wanted to do. Okay, great. So I think we'll be going well. So we've got our job done. We can hit it. We get the score. And what we haven't done so far is that when the ball is missed, I want the score to increase. So how do we do that, right? So let's see. So when we are dropping the ball, that's the time we need to take care of that. So where is it? This is the place we are dropping the ball, right? Just before we go ahead and, in fact, here, we can say this dot missed. Okay, we have the missed score element, which is basically this element, the 0 that you see over here. So we'll grab hold of that and we'll say plus equals 1, which means whatever the value of the missed score was, just add 1 to it. So initially, if he misses one ball, it'll be 1, and then the second time it'll become 2, and so on. Okay, so you're adding the score, and we want to ensure that just append the value of the missed score, which was initially, let's say it's missed count, not missed, missed count. Initially, the value of the missed count was 0, and then just increment it by 1 every time he misses the ball. Okay, and okay, and then also add that value to the missed score element, which is this element right here. So again, we'll use the same thing, which is text content equals this dot missed count dot toString. Okay, so inspect element, refresh, it's gone. There you go, you can see 1 is added. Refresh, gone, you can see 1 is added over here. Let's just zoom in to show you. Refresh, 1 is added. Awesome, great, perfect. So we got that going there, and so instead of going ahead and putting these elements over here, I can actually change them, right? This new audio, and then whatever the path of that is. Same thing goes for the shooting audio as well. I can just say sound slash, what is the name? Shooting. Copy. There you go.